This is the regular meeting of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment will now come to order. Today is Wednesday, May 21st, 2014. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Murray Slade.
Present.
Comptroller Green. Here. President Reed.
Here.
Okay, looks like everybody's ready to go and present. And I just want to recognize, before we start on the agenda, Winston Calvert, who is now the City Councilor for the City of St. Louis. Winston, if you just stand and just say hello to everybody. Hello. He's the person that's going to be, he's in charge now. And I know you all know Fred Wessels, but he's now here, I think, first time at ENA in his capacity as the CDA Director. So, Fred, we'll go up on board. Good to have you on board with this. So we'll start with the items presented for the first time. Item number 1, request from the Comptroller's Office for approval of contracts and leases for various city departments as listed on Exhibit A. Item 2, request from the Comptroller's Office for approval of intra-departmental and interdepartmental transfers from the various city departments as listed on Exhibit B. Item 3, request from the Comptroller's Office for approval of transfers between projects for capital improvement funds listed on Exhibit C. Item 4, request from the Deputy Comptroller's Office for approval to pay an invoice to the Missouri Municipal League for a membership renewal in the amount of $28,739.70 from line item Fund 1010 Center 1900000, account 5648. Item 5, request from the Deputy Comptroller's Office for approval to overspend accounts as needed to meet the city's financial obligations for the remainder of the fiscal year. Funds will come from unspent and unencumbered appropriations within the same department or center where possible. Item 6, request from the Deputy Executive Director, St. Louis Development Corporation, for approval of Board Bill number 51, which authorizes a 5th supplemental trust indenture to the TIF notes issued pursuant to ordinance number 68874. This ordinance will allow 634 North Grand to utilize the tax abatement and TIF benefits that have been previously approved for the building and parking parcels to be implemented through a condominium approach. Item 7, request from the Executive Director of the Community Development Agency Administration for approval of changes to their 2014 Annual Action Plan to reflect the actual grant award administered by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The changes are as follows: $389,124 for CDBG housing production, $97,281 for CDBG CDA administration, $110,912 for home housing production, and $12,324 for home CDA administration. Item 8, request from the Deputy Comptroller's Office for approval of Board Bill number 25. This ordinance authorizes the issuance of tax and revenue anticipation notes by the City of St. Louis not to exceed $75,000. That's the extent of the items presented for the first time. Do we have any additions, corrections, or deletions? I believe there is a deletion. And who's going to handle that one?
I'll handle it. Item number 4 should be deleted. It was approved by ENA last month. Okay,
we will delete item 4 unless there's any objection to that, because we did approve this last meeting. Hearing no objection, item 4 is deleted from the agenda. And so now we have items 1 through 3 and items 5 through 8. Any additions, corrections, or deletions there?
I actually have an addition that I've been hoping that we can do at this time, or should I wait until later for an add-on?
An add-on is something we can take now. I think that's fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Or you want to vote this out?
Pass the agenda, then
yeah, we'll do whatever you want. It doesn't matter, but we'll take it. I guess once we get this that's on here dealt with, and then we'll take up the item that you want us to consider.
I move that we.
Yeah,
I move that we adopt items 1 through 3 and 5 through 8.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve items 1 through 3 and 5 through 8 as printed, seconded by the Comptroller. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion carried unanimously. Items 1 through 3 and 5 through 8 are approved. Now, Madam Comptroller, we'll take up any additional items the board may wish to discuss.
I would like to add, for the consideration of the board, a letter that would recommend portions of the possible GO bond be made available for improvements of the roadways in North St. Louis City that would complement the new bridge and its in its ability to get workers to and from and throughout that particular area. In particular, what I want to point out is the City of St. Louis's designation as a SC2 city strong communities by the federal government, which means that federal officials will come to help the city to strengthen its economic development plans and carry out the revitalization goals. And in particular, they pointed out the North Side redevelopment plan. And so in light of that, the challenge that the city will have is how to participate. And one of the ways I believe we can give them an assurance that we are serious about their coming is that we will recommend that portions of potential city bond proceeds would go towards the rehabilitation of some of those roadways in North St. Louis in order to make that North St. Louis redevelopment area particularly amenable to job creation and protecting jobs in the city of St. Louis. So that's explained in the letter. The president of the board and Mr. Mayor, you both have the letters. And if you have any questions about this recommendation, I'll take them.
All right. All right. I would rather not take up the letter today. I'll tell you why. Because it's my understanding that part of the letter, part of the $29 million would come off of the existing TIF in that redevelopment area, right, for that North Side regeneration project.
It would be a savings. In other words, the TIF would be reduced because the availability of bond funds, so that we will not be duplicating dollars. If the city says to the federal government that we're going to make available these dollars for roadway improvements, then we cannot, in good conscience, duplicate it with TIF dollars that's already been approved. So those TIF dollars would be reduced dollar for dollar, and it's in the fourth paragraph, the last sentence. And so the redevelopment agreement that you approved in the Board of Aldermen has over $350 million. And this letter says that we recommend up to $29 million.
Come off the bottom of that tip.
Yeah, so for example, if it's decided that only like 10 or 19 or 20, because it's up to the redevelopment agreement along with those who are planning and this body and the Board of Aldermen. This is not in any way, shape, or form committing the city or the Board of Aldermen or the Board of E&A. This is a recommendation. And what this does is very subtle. It gives a message to the federal government that we are leaders, we are serious about revitalizing North St. Louis, and this is a recommendation. So we can take this and then over to the Board of Aldermen and say, okay, this is what's recommended, because in total we have a GO that has to be approved by voters. This also is a first step to going out and being very specific with the voters. And you haven't said anything that I'm aware of about what it is that the city is willing to do with this GO to help support the North Side redevelopment. You see what I'm saying? Right now they're two separate things, but we're stepping in and make a recommendation that these dollars will come from the GO.
Yeah, and I understand all
okay.
that. And I think that, it's very important that we take care of the infrastructure needs, especially in North St. Louis, because, with that redevelopment project that they're working on, the infrastructure needs are going to be major, and we need to make sure that they're done.
Absolutely.
With the new bridges and everything you cited in the letter. But I am hesitant to box it in like that, to say that we want $30 million without enough other backup information. Like I have no idea what the total, what this and how this would impact the project, the timing on all of it, and everything.
That's why you put a recommendation and not anything further. The recommendation is set early so that everything else is worked out later. You
Yeah,
don't?
I know what you're
You
saying.
see what I'm saying? So let's say you don't do this, and then you get asked the question. Then what do you have? And that's just my opinion,
Well, what we-
and this is something I'm bringing to the mayor and I'm bringing to you,
Yeah.
because I'm the fiscal office, and my opinion is that we make a point. We make a point to say that we are players when it comes to redevelopment in the city of St. Louis, and that point has to be made to those who in Washington that are going to be looking at, well, what is the city of St. Louis doing? Are we just having workshops, or are we just, having lip service? You see what I'm saying? What are we doing?
We have a $350 million tip.
No, we don't. We have given that to a developer. Now, what is the city of St. Louis, and where is our piece? That's what I'm saying.
Well, we are committing those tax dollars, the future tax revenue to the
Exactly.
project.
That's
right?
correct.
And I'm not going to debate the fact on whether we should do more and everything, because obviously I think no matter what, we need to do more. I'm just hesitant to do it in this way with
Okay.
that letter.
I wish I could say I understood, but I hear you. You know what I'm saying? I do hear you, but I really, really want to be a partner when it comes to protecting jobs. And I know everything that, that the Pruitt-Igoe site has been like that for so many years, and here's an opportunity that we can just kind of say to the federal government, you bring us money to fix this site, but what our needs are, and we're going to make sure that the roads are going to get you there.
Yeah,
and so that's where I'm at.
There.
So that's where I am.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on it.
Okay.
Okay, for the record, I want to make sure that the record's clear on what we're discussing. There's a letter dated May 20th, 2014, from John Zakai, with the Deputy Controller, to the honorable members of the Board of Investment and Apportionment, and it's regarding roadway infrastructure needs. It is seeking this board's approval of the letter, of the recommendation,
Yes.
which would be there's a request that the Board of Investment and Apportionment, and I'll quote, recommend up to $29.5 million of potential bond proceeds for infrastructure needs as it relates to roadways in the North St. Louis redevelopment area. This would reduce the amount of proposed TIF amount dollar for dollar. That's part of one paragraph that I quoted, so we know what letter we're talking about here. It was brought in under additional items for the board to be discussed, so I want the record to reflect that. And there's been some discussion about it, and I'd like to add to that discussion. This, first of all, is not a final decision on where this money's going to be, how it's going to be appropriated. It's got to go through the entire appropriation processes of city government before it is spent and the money's given to wherever it goes wherever it goes. This is just, as I understand it, a position that the controller is asking us to take to show that, as a Board of Investment and Apportionment, this is something we would recommend and we would support. But again, it's like a letter of intent. It's not anything that's binding on anybody, but it does give us an idea of kind of where we'd like to head. And I think it's something, as the controller said, and I agree, we do have, for those of you who are not familiar with the SC Squared or SC2 program, Strong Cities, Strong Communities, it was a competitive, we wanted a competitive application. Cities around America were bidding on this, and we were one of the cities that were chosen for this. What this means is that we will have resources in the form of people. We actually have one person right now in my office that's here, and an intern working with us to help us address, to try to access as many federal resources and programs as possible, so that we can, do more things in neighborhoods and build jobs and build opportunities in our community. So this is a very big thing that we want to take advantage of. One of the big focuses of this, and not the only one, but one of the biggest focuses is the Pruitt-Igoe site. And the whole purpose behind it is to encourage the federal government to finally address what has been the poster child for bad federal government policy, and the legacy of that in 34 acres that are sitting in the near north side, the Pruitt-Igoe site, which is environmentally contaminated and is a place that could be marketed well, but we need the transportation connections through I-64 on the west and the new bridge on the east. I like this idea. I like the idea of I like the letter. I do support the approach, and so at this time, I'll just open up for any further discussion.
No, unfortunately, I couldn't support the letter today. I think that, certainly, do we need the transportation infrastructure upgrades? Yes, we do. This is, for me, the way I see it, we're putting it, if we put the $29 million in and left the other money there, then it would make more sense to me. But we're putting the $29 million in, and then we're taking $29 million off of the TIF. And to that, it's essentially, reducing the liability on one hand on the developers, the performance of the TIF, and replacing it with more tax money from the residents. So,
With the whole purpose behind the letter, as the comptroller stated, and I agree with her, and approach, is that what this does is demonstrates to the federal government, who we're going to be working on, that we are committed to this project. And it does say up to $29.5 million of potential bond proceeds. Well, we don't have bond money yet, and this is up to that amount. And as we go forward, if we determine that there are other ways to get this done, what we want to do is attract a large employer, and we also want to show the federal government that we're 100% behind this. So this is more of a and it's not a solid commitment. This money's going to go there.
It's more
but it basically is a message to those who are interested in this, whether it's a business that's looking maybe moving in this area, or the federal government that's helping us with resources and ideas, that we're committed to this project, that we want to make this happen. And we might not spend a penny of this $1 million on that. So that's the idea, and I think that's I thought that was a great idea.
That I guess if I was the federal government, and if I had given money, and all the cities that are being awarded this initiative, we're strapped. So, you go out and you try to do the best you can with whatever types of funding mechanisms that you have. And we just, like I said in the letter, we've been discussing this bond issue. We've been talking about it. And so within these discussions, I've said, okay, let us put a priority somewhere about, jobs. And I don't think that anyone would say that jobs this is not stabilized neighborhoods. Jobs stabilize neighborhoods. So we want to not only protect jobs, we want to attract jobs. And so how best to do that is to just step out, I'm going to say on faith, because we don't know if this GEO bond is going to pass, but we do know that we are committed to creating jobs, we're committed to protecting jobs, and the way to do that is put the signal out there to everybody that are listening, especially those employers that we want to come. And so, and I'll tell you my experience is as a controller years ago, I was also budget director, so I knew how important it was that the public, being our business public, understand what it is that's being done in the boardrooms of City Hall with regards to their needs. And one of the things that excited the business owners the most at a panel or a conference that I gave was to know the plans that were on the books for bridges, roads, so that they can understand that as they look out 5 years, 10-year plans of their business, that they know that their goods and services are going to be able to get in and out, and they don't have to look to the east side or to the county whose redevelopment agreements, they know that probably can be more expansive than ours, because we are the quote-unquote inner city, St. Louis, and a lot of things aren't talked about when it comes to the 5-year plan or the budget, and it's not talked about when it comes to capital improvements of the budget. So when you talk about this GEO bond and you talk about roadways and the connectivity with the new bridge, I think that's exciting news that we are committed to not only the new bridge, but to put those roads that are in that area up to the level of that they should be, so that they can provide transportation. I mean, that's what it's all about. The trucks and things that's going to be coming off of that bridge into North St. Louis. We want those. Hopefully, we'll have some warehouses and some new businesses, and we want those trucks to feel like they can roll off and into those those warehouses. And not only that, the bottom line in all of this is jobs. That's the number one priority in this whole discussion is jobs, jobs, jobs. And you have to have the proper infrastructure in order to support jobs.
Yeah, and I completely agree. That's why we passed and have given over $300 million TIF to the project. I think that the federal government and everybody in the United States and globally, when they look at that project, it'd be hard for them to look at that project and not see the city's commitment to it. All that we've gone through across the last couple of years, the court cases and everything and the like, passing, readopting board bills and readopting and bringing them back. We've done it. We've done all of that. And you know, to take and you know, what is, I think, going to be some you know, precious resources in the GEO bond fund, and say we're going to channel up to $29 million, we might as well call it $30 million, back to this project, but then we're going to decrease the TIF amount dollar for dollar. I just think that you know, that you know, I can't see any way supporting it. Because if we were talking about something additional, something that wasn't already there, I think that would be different. But we're not talking about something additional, something that we have not already committed to, and we've committed and recommitted over the last several years to that project. So.
Well, I can only bring what I think is the best for the city and the people who live here, and I do know that, you know, you're correct in saying that we did commit the $300 million, but what I do know that we didn't have was the SEC designation, and now that we have that, we have to speak to that. That's a challenge that must be spoken to loud and clear, and in order to be heard, then the commitment that I'm asking us to make today is to simply say that we recommend as a body that we protect jobs. If we recommend as a body that we step to the challenge of the SEC designation instead of being silent on it. This is very clear that it's about jobs, and it ties into the Northside Redevelopment Agreement simply because it's already in place. But you got to remember the application to the federal government had lodged in it this portion of St. Louis revitalization, along with the sustainability plan for the city. It had large portions of this this section of the North Side redevelopment, the Pruitt-Igoe site in particular. And that's huge. I mean, anybody that you would ask, north, south, east, or west in this city, I believe would support this redevelopment of this abandoned Pruitt-Igoe site.
Absolutely. And again, if we're talking about new money, we're not talking about new money here. I think that needs to be clear. We're talking about putting $29 million in and decreasing liability on the other side, and that's something that's
kind of oversimplification, and
that's exactly what that is.
It is not. It's I'm going to tell you why, and because I would think the same way you would. I promise you. But the reason that it's not in this particular case is because TIF doesn't develop anything.
I know, okay. But we're decreasing. You heard what I said. We were decreasing the liability because now that TIF can underperform by nearly $30 million and still meet the obligation because we're replacing dollar for dollar. We're decreasing that TIF amount on the other side. So
I would love the whole entire TIF to go away. If it was zero TIF, that would be the best thing on behalf of the city of St. Louis. In other words, we would not have, just like you stated, that liability.
Why would a city? It's not our liability. It's the liability on the developer because the TIF has to perform.
When I wish Beverly was here, and John, I don't know if it's a long discussion to talk about. And you're a CPA, so it goes on our books when those bonds go out there. You know that. So the GO is different. You know that, and so I would rather a GO than a TIF. And any day, it's much better for the city's credit.
I understand that.
You understand? Okay, I just wanted to make sure you understood all that. Okay, because there is a difference.
But again, we're talking $29 million over $350 million, a $350 million tip. And, you know, in my estimation, I still see it just kind of shifting liabilities. You know, the city has been designated strongest, you know, the strongest city, strong, you know, has more sustainable communities. You know, I've been a presenter at 2 of those conferences, you know, on behalf of the city, and we play a major role in that across the United States now, and I think it's important that we continue to expand, you know, our presence within that, you know, as a city. It's only going to help us down the road. And I think the new person that we have here in the mayor's office is going to be very helpful in helping us get direct access to grants and everything else too.
They call it the bureaucracy buster.
Bureaucracy.
They call
Yeah,
it.
that's
Which is a
true.
big deal in Hawaii.
Which is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
That's a big deal. So, but thank you.
Yeah.
We, you know, one of the things that I don't know has been done yet is to explain exactly how we ended up with that, because nobody knew. You know, everybody, I think the federal government came in and said, okay, St. Louis, we're going to give you a person. But it didn't happen like that.
No,
It
we had to
happened
do.
through.
It was a very rigorous process,
Yeah.
very competitive. Cities all across America. I don't know how many cities were chosen in this round, but
There were 6, and
6
over
cities.
100 applied.
Over 100 applied, and I can tell you I was personally involved in the process, but Mary Ellen headed it up. She was the one that spearheaded the approach, because that was important. We had to make sure we didn't just say, hey, look, we want this program, and you know, they wanted to know who was going to be involved in it, how engaged the mayor was going to be. They wanted to know. They looked at our track record. They looked at the stuff we've already been able to accomplish. They wanted to make sure if they were going to put the investment here, they felt like their investment was going to be well worth it and it was going to be successful. So everyone in my cabinet and in my staff was involved in putting this thing together. Almost everyone, in terms of you know, discussing. And we had federal people from federal agencies here talking to us, grilling us in this room and in other places, in my office and in City Hall, and and we also had to have a vision of what we wanted to accomplish. What is it you want out of the program? And this is one of them. Pruitt-Igoe was one of the things that I think was one of the most attractive things. Federal government, you created this issue. Okay, we've got 34 acres, environmentally contaminated, in the middle of a economically distressed area that we've got a vision for. You know, help us take this negative legacy of the federal government and do something real positive for the future. There's other things too. It's not just about Pruitt-Igoe, but that's going to be our basic kind of our real big focus is going to be that. There's some other things as well that we're working on, and so they and we actually have. Do you have a summary we can give?
Yeah, and Charlie Foley's the employee that's been assigned to us.
We have a very, very well done summary that Mary Ellen was the primary, and Eddie Roth from my office were the primary authors of. If you read it, it's very compelling. It's very well done. You can see that we spent, as a team, a lot of effort on it. We thought through this over a period of months and months. About 8 months. And now we've got it here. We've got not only a person here and an intern, but we also have about 20 other representatives from other agencies and different parts, someplace else like in Washington, that are here. They're going to be focusing on St. Louis, focusing on this program. And the 2 lead agencies are HUD and EPA. They're the 2 lead agencies. HUD and EPA, which fits in really well.
That's really
right here.
Yeah, that's what we need.
So we really did tailor this. We really gave it a lot of thought. It's been very well. And if you look at the summary, you know what I'm talking about. I can tell you that I've been working on this for a while myself. And when I read the summary, I was blown away.
Yeah.
I mean, because of how well my staff did in putting it all together. So very proud of everybody.
Really big deal.
But we've got an opportunity here. We don't want to pass it up. So we ready to.
Well, I just want to say one more thing, if I could help convince you, because tip dollars.
I'm not trying to stand in your way. I'm just saying.
Oh, I get it. I understand where you're coming from. But just as I was listening to the mayor, the roads are so important, and this $29 million or up to could end up being matching dollars from funding that we find, but TIF money cannot.
I didn't say TIF money.
Well, I'm saying it. I know you didn't, but I'm just saying it because a TIF is not a real dollar until it's until you get a
You got
bond.
to build something first. You got to
You
get
got to
that
build
activity
something.
going.
That's why the liability is on that guy's side.
And that's that concept. I agree
because it's not backed by
That's
full
exactly
faith
right.
credit.
But when you're playing with the federal government and it says, well, we only have, we got some monies from for this road, but where's your matching dollars? And normally we would look to the East-West Gateway.
Well,
Okay, but if there have been times where we had to come up with it out of our own pocket.
Now you're actually switching over to another subject. I like that because one of the things that came out of today's discussion, Paul had to leave, was what a lot of the aldermen would like to see. They're like, well, how can we program into this thing matching funds, right?
That's what this would do, and that's a subtle way. And here's what I want you to.
Let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
So maybe what we would be looking to do is to have a much larger pot of matching funds, and then you guys would have to come around the table and say, yeah, that's what we need to do. Especially you, because it's your departments, would have to talk to them and say, okay, does this work or does this not work, right? And are there grants that we're going to be applying for that maybe we can use this for, right? I can see that. I can see.
But you're saying what this is doing, and yet I'm
what
not.
this is doing is a little bit different, but
It's totally not.
yeah, it is a little different.
It's totally not. And here's why.
Okay.
You're making some excellent points, Louis, about the grants, and I know for a fact because the mayor just said, and Mary Ellen is doing it, and the guy Foley is here. We're applying for grants.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know the outcome, but we want to be ready to be a player and match. We were a player at times when we had a flood here, and then we had the opportunity to bring some monies from a bond issue for flood walls. Well, there was a bunch of things that coulda, woulda, shoulda, but the bottom line was the mayor says, okay, we're going to match dollars because we know it's coming for these flood walls. But the money was sitting there just waiting to be used, and that's what I'm hoping that this recommendation is like, okay, we want to put this out there that this money is waiting here ready to be used because the recommendation is here. But of course the Board of Aldermen, you guys are the last ones to say, okay, we will or we won't match the dollars for this or that road. But if you don't have it, then you can't even make that recommendation.
No, I think
so I could remove this sentence if it's bothering you about the TIF. I could just take it off the letter.
No.
If that's what would be the holdback from you approving it, because it's not as tied in as you appear to be making it.
Well,
you see what I mean?
Yeah, and I understand that the letter's
Okay.
supposed to be kind of a recommendation.
It's extremely broad.
This is what we recommend.
It's extremely broad, and it's a helpful tool, and it's not a commitment at all.
I understand that the letter is supposed to be.
And I really want your support.
Well, I want to support it, but the letter's supposed to be, okay, we recommend that while you're looking at all these issues, you guys think about this also, right? Because
Exactly.
Pruitt-Igoe is an important issue, infrastructure improvements. I'm a cyclist, so I know that, trust me. But and I understand that is the intent. I don't think the letter captures that. That's what I've been saying. Because once we get into, okay, we're going to reduce it off of the TIF and we're going to do this and all that stuff, that's something completely different.
Would that help
and
you?
are we applying for any, grants or anything like that for transportation in that area?
We're one of the reasons we have to answer your question. We're going to apply for everything we can.
Okay.
Because that's one of the reasons we have the federal people here to kind of work with us and see what kind of resources are available and how we access them.
I'm sorry. Let me qualify my question. I'm asking you as the chairman of East-West Gateway, do you see anything on the horizon where we could use $29 million worth of matching grants and challenge?
Not from the state. And I have to tell you, and that's going to be tough even if we get the tax increase. I mean, you know what's going on with MoDOT now. They don't have enough money even to maintain the system that's in place. And if they're going to build anything new, we're going to get new resources. They're going to have to be some. They've got a tax increase that's going to go on the ballot, as you know. That's going to have to be passed, and then we have to compete within. Our region competes with the rest of the state on these things, and within our region, we're competing with our regional colleagues. Hey, what we do is if there's ideas on like something like this, we got a big program. We need to have our engineers up in the Board of Public Service, working on these things, and we make the application through East West Gateway for the state funds. So, but yeah, but we need MoDOT would need a lot more money before that would be.
Most federal transportation grants require don't require, but like a 50% match.
Yeah. They want match money.
Like 20 is a minimum.
And that's one thing we've had issues with match money because of
maybe
issues.
Maybe what we do, we get together and talk about what size pool of match money should we make sure is in place in this GEO bond, because that's come up over and over again. That's a lot of what they talked about today. That would come from your department heads can tell us a little bit about it, and then anything.
We certainly have a list of things that we can, how much we need.
And then it's not so narrowly, narrowly. I just think this is a tough one.
Ron, do we know on the with the GEO bond how much of that might be able to be used for match money?
I can get it. I know the Capital Committee had set aside, or in that discussion for the total for streets and bridges, the whole idea of that piece that's recommended is a 20% match for federal dollars, and they had identified, working through BPS and other offices, figuring out what the total is. So if you bear with me 1 second, I can bring that in just so you'll know exactly what's been carved.
It'll only take a minute. We'll just go ahead and do it, or we can send them. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good to know.
So
context.
I think this. For the road, streets, and bridges for match funding. So we would. So what we're essentially talking about is just upping that.
Yes.
Right. Making this available for on the IFCOM, when we are talking about possibilities for funding that area, the North St. Louis area, which is part of why SC2 initiative has been awarded to St. Louis. We're saying that this could be made available when you ask for resources.
And we could say the same thing. That's what with the current match funding that we have in the current proposal could go for a project like that. But we would be talking
17,900,000.
So we have 18 million set aside right now in the current proposal for match funding for road, streets, and bridges. Right? So we would look at adding another 30 million for additional match funding on the IFCOM. So we
potentially match. I mean, it may or may not be matched. Depends on.
So we would be approaching close to $47-50 million of $155 million.
No.
I think it would have to be the 195.
Which
is in the bill.
195 million.
$50-something million in match funding that we would just have sitting out.
Well, match funding is good because what happens is you leverage other dollars with it. So it's not just an investment in the amount of the allocation, but you also can match when you match other dollars. If it's a 20% match, you put in 20 million, you get,
no doubt, it's a great bang for the buck. But I'm just trying to think of
these are all things I think we can sort out later. I think the idea behind this is a good one. It sends a good message, and it does show our commitment to this real important project. It helps us with the federal government, helps us in promoting and marketing this particular site for a large employer. It does need the connectivity to be successful. This shows our commitment to help make that happen. But it doesn't. This is not a final say. This is not something that. It's not an appropriation. It is not.
It's not an appropriation.
We're not appropriating anything right here. All we're doing is it's just saying that we think it's a good idea and we'll recommend it. So, are we ready to kind of take a vote or make a motion on this thing?
I'd like to make a motion that we would approve the Board of E&A recommend that up to $29.5 million of potential GO bond funds would be used for infrastructure needs in the North St. Louis redevelopment area, as it is stated in this letter. That is strictly a recommendation that sends a message to potential employers, to the federal government, and it is a strong leadership message from the mayor, president of the board, and comptroller of this body that says we are committed to revitalizing North St. Louis.
I second.
Question, other discussion?
Anything else? If there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Present.
Okay, there's 2 ayes and 1 present. That motion is passed. And if there's nothing further to be brought, I think we have covered everything on the agenda. If there's nothing further to be brought up before this body, then I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned.